Everybody, welcome. My name is Skylent, and today we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite free-to-play games that you can no longer play. They were actually canceled, in development, alpha, beta, whatever, or they were shut down much later after release because like nobody played them or, for whatever reason. Some of these games actually had a very, very lively player base. And I know there are games out there that have, they've been canceled or they've been shut down, and a lot of people played them, a lot of people liked them, but this is going to be my personal list of games that I liked, enjoyed, and played, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a quick, casual top 10. Thought it'd be fun, so let's get into it. Let's start off by talking about Infinite Crisis here. Infinite Crisis was shut down. It was a decent MOBA. The problem is that there was a lot of MOBAs, and a lot of them were, decent. They were okay. It's just, when you're competing with the most popular game in the world, League of Legends, and then you also had Dota 2 coming out, which was just, nobody can compete with the polish of that game. Every other game kind of, even if it was, an okay game, it just looked really, really mediocre compared to that. So, since the mechanics weren't really unique with Infinite Crisis, even though the concept was really cool, golden, I think a lot of people were really hyped for the game. It's just, its game feel overall wasn't too different from something like League of Legends. So, in the end, I guess it just didn't have enough hype to bull true it through, and they ended up shutting it down. I think it could have existed still. I think they could have made some changes. I think they could have fixed it. I don't think that it should have been shut. And in fact, I think most games should not be shut down unless they are literally cancer or doing something illegal. I think there's a place for every single game to just persist. Just let people play games, man. It's like closing down a playground or something. We're all kids, we all just want to have fun. So yeah, there's the first game, Infinite Crisis. Oh, and by the way, this list is not ranked in any way. I'm just, spitting out my top 10. Anyways, Battlefield Play for Free, next. I liked this game. It was essentially Battlefield 2, kind of remixed slightly. It was like the engine and the maps and a lot of mechanics, but they switched it around to where it was essentially pay to win, and it was also really grindy, and it was uncomfortable to play with a lot of other people. And overall though, it was still my first this was my first PC Battlefield experience, and it wasn't bad. I mean, because it was borrowing from Battlefield 2. Honestly, I think they would have done so much better if they just took Battlefield 2 and then maybe added some cosmetics and stuff, actually gave us new content, maybe added, I don't know, different skins for tanks and stuff. I don't know, the PlanetSide 2 does that. I think they could have added a lot of fun to the game, but they ended up just kind of watering down number 2. Anyways, a lot of people still played it, and this is going to be one of many EA games that have been canceled, free-to-play games specifically. The next one's going to be Battlefield Heroes. Battlefield Heroes was something like Team Fortress 2 mixed with Battlefield. It was really meant for kids. It was a children's game. It was super easy and silly, but still at the same time, it was actually kind of really fun. If they actually kept up with it, updated the engine, this could be a legitimate game to play. Now, there are other FPS browser games out there that utilize HTML5 and they utilize a lot of new technologies, and Battlefield Heroes could have used those technologies, could have been a really awesome game, still thriving and growing, but I guess it just wasn't enough for EA. Anyways, EA canceled pretty much all their other free-to-play games, so there's really no one reason why this game was canceled. It was probably just EA just done with the whole thing. So yeah, there's that. Next, I want to talk about Nosgoth. This is, I believe, the most recent on the list here. The most recent free-to-play game to be completely shut down. And this is actually from a company that Psyonix and Nosgoth team. Who does that? Square Enix. They were publishing and developing this game. It was supposed to be a competitive, asymmetrical, third-person shooter fighter thing. It was really cool. One team's vampires, one team's humans, and you duke it out. You got a Call of Duty customization system. The problem was that there was some optimization issues. There was, overall the game was really cool, really hype. They even paid me to actually do a map preview video. So, genuinely, I very much enjoyed the game, and they seemed to really be hyped about the game, but it just didn't have the following, probably because with its Call of Duty equipment system, perks and different weapons that you can, equip and everything, being free to play, you had to grind to unlock not just classes, but also those perks, weapons, equipments, and it just, it was kind of uncomfortable for what was supposed to be a competitive game. It had replays, it had everything, starting to look like a truly competitive game, but it was too little too late. They added cool classes and cool weapons, but in the end, not many people could get to those because, again, you had to grind it because it was a free-to-play game. So it's free-to-play, not because it was free-to-play. I want to say that. It's not because these games are free-to-play. It's because of how they go about being free-to-play that a lot of them lose a lot of people. Anyways, that's probably why Nosgoth failed compared to their other game, Rocket League. Okay, so let's talk about DawnGate. DawnGate was probably the most hopeful, most creative most awesome MOBA to come out. Like, it was pretty unique, but I will say that the game feel overall was really slow-paced. But again, Heroes of the Storm is kind of slow-paced. I think it was really unique in the way it went about its item shop, in the way it went about its map design, and pretty much everything that it did was kind of a twist on the usual formula. So, I mean, instead of 3 lanes, it would have 2. Instead of like a jungle in the middle of the map, it was more like the jungle was on the outside of the map. And it kind of had like this resource system, and basically it had some really cool ideas, and the comic series that they started got me really hyped. And they even started doing competitiveness. A lot of people dropped out of playing League of Legends, pro players, to go play DawnGate. And then all of a sudden EA pulled, yes, that's right, another EA plugged. Yeah, they pulled the plug here. It kind of broke a lot of people's hearts. Now, I kind of predicted it because it overall, like, its mechanics weren't really that interesting or new. Like, Heroes of the Storm is vastly different to a normal MOBA. The twist was a little bit more twisty. DawnGate was still somewhat standard, right? Instead of 3 lanes, 2 lanes, you know, stuff like that. Just slight twists. And for its actual mechanics, you know, it was really, like, I don't know, it was kind of boring in ways, like mechanically, physically, so I could see why a lot of people weren't playing it, and it had a diehard community. It could have gotten there, though. I mean, when League of Legends first started, when Dota first started, when a lot of these MOBAs first start, they just have point-and-click abilities, and it's kind of boring. But then later on, you know, they develop the technologies, and it becomes this really awesome thing. And if you look at DawnGate's later character design, they got really intense and really fun. And then how they started meshing with the older characters, it was really cool, but we didn't get to see any more after that. EA just was done with it. Okay, so let's talk about a Jagex game called Transformers Universe. Transformers Universe started as an MMO, but then they thought it was too ambitious, so they decided to go with a MOBA. But then they wanted to make it like a MMOBA. Hey, there's actually a couple of those currently in development right now. But anyways, it was just weird. It wasn't really competitive because it was drop in, drop out. And there was an open world area. I don't really know. It was really confusing for me. But the core concept of the game was really cool. You're a transformer, and like you have these abilities, and you can customize your character to a little bit of a degree. You have a couple of different characters you can choose from, and every character is essentially like 2 characters because you have a movement mode, like you're a car or a truck or whatever, and then you can transform. And the way you transform was really freaking cool. Like, if you were moving really fast or used your thrusters as a car and you jumped off a ramp, then you could transform in the air and that momentum would carry you. And like, it basically played almost like a third-person shooter. However, I do believe that there is actually a third-person shooter Transformers game that actually has a cult following. Like, you know, 2,000 people play it daily. That game actually is viscerally very fun, an epic, I guess you could say. And then this game was just really watered down, so it wasn't really itching that MOBA itch. It wasn't really an MMO. It just wasn't really anything. But it had a cool, solid foundation. But I don't know. I think they should have picked a direction. In the end, they flip-flopped too many times, and they decided just to cancel the entire thing, which kind of sucks, honestly, because it was also a browser shooter. And if they just left it in its current, rendition, even though it wasn't a great game, it could have been built upon later on, which is tragic. That's why I like free-to-play games. Even if they're not great at the beginning, they're free. So you expect a lot of persistent updates, and yeah, well, not if they get canceled, right? Okay, so the next game is a 2v2 fighting game called Rise of Incarnates. Now, when I first did my very first impression on this game, I thought it was neat, like a cute idea. But I didn't quite understand the concept of spectacle fighters. And then later that year, I played Naruto Shippuden, and I really got into that game. And it finally clicked with me. I understood what a spectacle fighter was. So I would jump back into Rise of Incarnates, and I feel like it was like this is the game that kind of just got lost in translation. It probably could have been a lot popular if they really focused maybe in Japan or China, the Chinese market. I don't know if is it still up in China, but I know that for the Western market, it is definitely closed. Rise of Incarnates was cool. It had auto-aiming features. And it also was kind of pay to win in ways. I mean, not only did you have to unlock characters, but you also had to unlock, like, upgrade things. Yeah, so, I mean, that was kind of uncomfortable. But overall, I think the Western audience is more used to Street Fighter. You're more used to 2D fighters. And Rise of Incarnates, was this 3D. It was a 3D fighter, but it was a spectacle fighter, and I don't think a lot of people are used to spectacle fighters. And plus, the way they went about it, its graphics weren't that amazing. Its characterization was weird. I think it was a really fucking amazing idea, and I played it a little bit. I even played with some of the top players in that game. Overall, it was okay, but it just didn't have the following, and I think it really missed its market. Okay, next up we have a game called DarkScape. Now, you can actually still play RuneScape, and there's different varieties of RuneScape, like different flavors of RuneScape, and which is pretty cool. I think that's a really neat idea. A lot of people are asking from that for World of Warcraft, right? You want the nostalgia servers. Like, you want to go back and play the pristine servers. Well, DarkScape was sort of a concept like that. It was essentially RuneScape, the full game for free, which you can't do. You cannot play RuneScape, the full game for free. However, the stipulation was that it was full PvP all the time. Yeah, so I really dug that idea. Started playing it a little bit, but then pretty much instantaneously, like within a month or two, they decided that they were going to shut it down, which really freaking sucks. I guess maybe it was too chaotic, or maybe not enough players were playing it, but this is another Jagex game, Transformers Universe being the other one. DarkScape, I really like that idea. I really want them to I want RuneScape to truly become free to play, and then just have cosmetics or what have you, or I don't know, like, you know, stuff like that, dude. Just RuneScape is not a true free-to-play game, so DarkScape was like the first true free-to-play RuneScape, and it even had full PvP, which I was into, and so it kind of breaks my heart that they shut it down. Yep. Okay, so this next game is a game called Raider Z. Raider Z is, it was a game that's kind of close to my heart. It was one of the very first, actually, it might technically, okay, no, it was the second game. It was the second game that I ever did a professional review on. I did Age of Wushu first, and then Raider Z came on to the scene, and I was already playing the game because I just kind of wanted to play it. So I was like, yeah, I'll do a first impression on that. Let's go. I jumped into a couple of different characters. I played all the different classes. I leveled them up. I took my first impression very seriously, which I don't do now. Anyways, so because I had to do a first impression on it, I was able to play a lot of the game, and I mean, I sunk more hours into it than I really wanted to, but still, it was a really cool game, and I had some memories with it, also because it was one of the first games that I ever did professionally as a review, and it was a game that was kind of similar to, I guess, Monster Hunter. It was basically like Monster Hunter, the MMO, and this was the only game that was like that at the time. You could actually use, like, okay, there's a crab, you can hit the crab, and its shell would fall off, like if you killed the crab, and then you could grab that shell and then use the shell as a weapon to kill other enemies. Now, I don't know if they actually utilized that sort of stuff throughout the game, like if there's bosses and you have to clip off like the tail or something and then use the tail to pierce their heart. I don't think they use the mechanics like that, but there is always that potential, you know, as a free-to-play game. However, there were other games like Terra that recently came out and then went free-to-play, which completely destroyed Raider Z. There was also, I think, Dragon's Prophet. There was just a couple other free-to-play games that came out that aesthetically looked like Raider Z, and I think a lot of people just didn't try it because it actually had some cool mechanics at its core. But then again, it also didn't have too much variety with its classes, and it was kind of clunky, so in the end, I mean, I can see why it wasn't popular, but it wasn't a bad game. It wasn't a bad game at all, and there's a lot of free-to-play games that have come out this past year, and Raider Z has definitely been better than them. All right, last game. Now, I saved this for last because this game isn't, I mean, it's canceled, but I have a feeling that we're actually going to see it in the future. This is a game called Rising Thunder. Rising Thunder was I don't know what you call, I don't know the technical genre, but it was a 2D fighter. It was a very standard 2D fighter, except instead of utilizing combos, I mean, like combo inputs, like forward, X, you know, to do a fireball. It wasn't quite like that. It was more like you just pressed X and it did the fireball. It was a really cool concept. It almost took like some ideas from MOBAs, and you actually see this in the new Street Fighter, and I'm assuming we're going to see this in more fighting games coming on, where people are going away from these sort of frame data fighters, from these fighters that really focus on combo inputs. That way, online play is a little bit more lenient and a little bit more fair, so it's going to be kind of similar to spectacle fighters. Anyways, this game did use frame data. It was a hardcore fighter. However, it did use abilities and cooldowns, which was kind of MOBA-esque, which is very interesting. In fact, in my first impression, I'm pretty sure I made the assumption that more fighting games are going to do this. It's a really cool idea. And I made the assumption that more genres overall are going to take ideas from MOBAs, which we saw in hero shooters. Anyways, Rising Thunder, which was like the MOBA of fighting games, kind of in ways, you know what I'm saying? It's like the hero shooter of fighting games, hero fighter shoot, I don't know, whatever. Anyways, this game actually got bought out by Riot Games. So Riot, yeah, they are probably, in my opinion, they are going to make a League of Legends fighter. If not a League of Legends fighter, then they're going to make a fighting game that is even more MOBA-esque than Rising Thunder. They're going to use Rising Thunder. I will say one thing, though. One criticism I had of Rising Thunder was that its characters, which were robots, didn't really sell me on the game at all. Like, there was no character, there was no love, there was no heart in these player characters. They're just faceless robots, basically. So if Riot takes this game and actually gives characters and then, really emphasizes the MOBA elements, the cooldowns and everything, because 1v1s in League of Legends is intense. It's mechanical, it's fun, so I could, actually bring that to a 2D space. I think they could actually balance and make a really awesome 2D fighter, maybe even make it tag team or something. I think it could be really freaking fantastic, but as we know it, Rising Thunder, as we knew it, is completely canceled and can't be played, and I actually really enjoyed it. So anyways, that was my top 10 favorite ended games, free-to-play games. Just a quick, casual, definitely filled with lots of ums and stutters, but I just wanted to get this list out. I just wanted it to be from my heart. So there it is. These are the games that I personally enjoyed, had fun with, and they were canceled. And honestly, sometimes, even though I have all these new games, I get a lot of games for free too. I've got Doom, I've got Witcher, I've got Overwatch. I've got a lot of really big AAA games, and I still, every once in a while, want to go back and play some of these older games, and I can't. It really sucks. Sometimes you want to get that nostalgia fix, and sometimes you genuinely want to go and experience some of the unique mechanics these games had. Probably specifically something like Nosgoth, right? Like, you don't get that anywhere else. No other game has that, and I'm so surprised it doesn't exist anymore. Honestly breaks my heart, and it is the game that actually spurred me to make this list. So thanks for watching, guys. My name is Skylent. Hopefully you appreciated the casual top 10, and man, I'm kind of heartbroken, but hopefully we don't see too many games canceled in the future, but I do hope I see you again in another top 10 list, and I'll see you guys next time.